waiting for it to
let you know that they're recording. Oh my gosh, that's funny.
recording.
Screencastify?
No, I'm recording from the meeting.
Okay.
Like in the Google Meet, you know?
Yeah.
But this is going to be I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be on it, you can turn your camera off, I guess. It's fine. I'm totally fine with that. It is public.
Heather
Okay.
and Tony, you look like you're in a spaceship or something. Where are you?
Ooh, that does look a little
Are you in a capsule?
Us?
Yeah, Heather.
Oh.
This is where the magic happens in early years.
Yeah.
Everything in early years is magical. So sure, I could be in a spaceship.
Yeah. Ooh.
I believe
You
it.
want to be in our spaceship, Tammy?
Does it have a playground for cats?
You have room for one more and a cat?
We got whatever you want over here. We can make anything happen. Making dreams come true. 4 and 5-year-old dreams come true.
Yep. Every day.
Two of my students are building an air hockey table. Let's just talk about that. Making dreams come true.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty cool. Okay, I've shared my slide here. So the first thing, this title where it says Literacy Lunch, Tracy Cotton shared something on Facebook last night. It's textgiraffe.com. And it's like the best word art I've ever seen in my life. And it's free and it's like the simplest website. And you just put in the words and then it gives you like 100 different styles, right? So that's going to be my tech tip next week. But you get the preview. So this is a little game we'll start with. It's called 1-Star Review, Guess Who? This was made by a librarian in Michigan. I can't remember his website, but it's super, I think it's pretty funny. So he finds reviews on goodreads.com of like popular books or classic books. And then it's people who give them 1 star and then their review. So I can give you a minute to read it, or I could just read it out loud, but I don't want to do both. I'll give you a minute. Is it too hard to read? Let me just read it. You're okay. Okay.
I have a guess.
Let me just read it out loud because as I told Jess yesterday, I did take some acting classes in 7th grade and I just like to practice these skills. So, okay, are you ready? Someone get me some crayons and a word processor with Courier font. There is hope for me to become a publisher yet. I do not understand why this book ever won a Caldecott Award for illustrations. And with all of my analytic powers, I have yet to understand the significance of this storyline. Is it about emotional intelligence? A masked attack on bird-brained people? Union loyalty? I am underwhelmed. Any guesses of what popular book this is referring to? Tammy?
Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus?
You got it. I don't have any prizes.
It needs sound effects. That's what Google Chat needs. Da-da-da!
Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, I should have had my app. Okay. Yeah, so sorry. Just a little silly literacy thing to start off with. Okay. Welcome to Literacy Lunch 2020, 2021. So why? Why are we here? Well, there's a few reasons. The first is connection. So my new best friend, Brene Brown, who's not really my best friend, defines connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. And I think something I really miss about like virtual school is the connection, the conversations, these kind of things that we were having lots last year. So one of the reasons why I wanted to start Literacy Lunch again is to build that connection back. The second reason is collaboration, right? We have each other. We should learn from each other. We're all super smart people. And I just want to talk about books and reading and writing and all those things. Reason number 4 is celebrations, right? Like, I just feel like when we were in school, we had a lot of, just telling each other when something goes well. We always started Literacy Lunch that way, of just a 5-minute check-in of, hey, does anyone have anything to share this week? So I miss those celebrations that we have. That's the third reason. Reason number 4 is I'm a huge nerd and I love meetings. And so any opportunity that says, welcome to the nerd zone, my friend, any opportunity I have to have another meeting, I'm on board. But not just me, we're in a school of nerds. And I say that with total love in my heart. I don't see the word nerd as a negative thing. It's a nerd is someone who's passionate about something. So do you want to just unmute, Jenny, and say something?
I was trying to figure out an N for nerd.
And then I didn't know what she was doing, so I thought we were spelling love. It didn't work very well.
Yeah, be careful with this.
Nev. I'll mute us again.
You're fine. So yeah, this is one of the reasons I always tell everyone I love working at this school so much, because we are just a bunch of passionate, nerdy educators who like to learn new things and try new things and talk to each other about new things. So I say I'm a nerd, but we're all nerds, really. So one thing that proves that you are also nerds is you are here at an optional meeting on a Wednesday afternoon when, like, you don't have to be here at all. So, I mean, we could just all admit it. So my goal for these meetings, building the connection, collaboration, celebrations, and just kind of nerding out. And my hope is because you're giving your time to be here, you'll always get something out of these meetings. So maybe something tangible that you can take to your class, or an activity, or maybe just a thought that you have as you leave, or during our conversation, something, okay? So you're giving your time. I hope you get something, but we'll see. I don't make any promises. Okay, so I was thinking today, usually I start my year with, we make a reading timeline. It's a way to build class community. It also shows the teachers at home reading live. It's accessible to all students because there are different types of timelines you might think about making. And one is just saying, here's a book from my childhood, or, if you are in KG, the kid might say, here's a book from when I was 3 that I really loved. And it takes away that judgment of like reading levels or anything like that. It's just books we loved when we were younger. And it also instills a growth mindset, because we think about how reading has gone in the past. We can see improvement in our reading lives. And also we can look at times when reading was good or reading was not so good. So I made a few different types of reading timelines. So the first one is just saying a book that you liked when you were younger. This could happen at any grade level, right? Just picking one book and saying, this is something I liked when I was younger. It could make connections between your students, right? Because they could say, oh, I have that book at my house, or I read that book when I was a kid, right? This is pretty simple. So I have this hot air balloon book in my brain. I have no idea what the title is, but I remember seeing the pictures of it. And so that's my first memory of reading. Timeline number 2 is just kind of sharing books that we've liked throughout our lives, right? So when I was 3, I had this hot air balloon book. In 1st grade, I really vividly remember reading the Dick and Jane series. And then in 7th grade, I remember Ella Enchanted like springboarded me back into reading because I lost it for a while there. So this is just kind of a simple pictures of books. But then if you're doing this as a class activity, they would explain each one like I just did. And the third one is thinking about your feelings about reading. This is a little bit more metacognitive, I guess. So thinking about different times in your life when you felt differently about reading. So when I was 3, reading was awesome. I have these memories with my grandma. When I was in 1st grade, reading was great. My teacher gave me lots of compliments when I would read Dick and Jane. In 4th grade, reading was horrible, and that's a real thing. My class did novel studies, and I couldn't read the books. I wasn't interested in them, and it was like I lost all of my everything I enjoyed about reading. It was gone. But then in 7th grade, it started to get better because I found that book, Ella Enchanted. And it kind of springboarded me to read more books like that. And my librarian was a big helper in that happening. Shout out librarians. I feel you. So those are 3 different types of timelines. So I am going to share this with you. And if you feel like it. So there's the 3 timelines I created, but then there's also some other templates down below of just, different ways this might look. So if you're feeling up to it, if you feel like doing an activity, you can take a slide and put your name at the top. If you want to use one of my slides, you can duplicate it and then put in your own things. I do this work a lot with my students, making a collaborative Google slideshow, and they always love it. And it takes some time in the beginning to talk about, working collaboratively on a doc because people might mess with other people's things. But once they get going, you can, it's really successful. And then you have this kind of shared Google slideshow where everyone has their own slide. And it's a nice artifact for the class. So I'll leave some time to do this. I think it'll be weird if we all just sit in silence. But I guess that's all I got. Any questions about this or thoughts about if it's something you think you could do, or, maybe in KG, Heather and Jenny, it might seem, I don't think I could do this. What's up, Val?
We did this in grade 4. That's where I am right now. And my kids had the opportunity to choose the book that they loved as a little kid and do it as a read aloud. And it was such a good introduction as well because like you said, they're not worried about the level of book that it is. It's just a great opportunity for kids to be like, oh my gosh, I remember that book, and how much we have in connection. That even though we are all from all over the world, we share so much of the same passions for literature. And that was such a great way. It took a good bit to get through every kid that wanted to read, but was a great part of my morning meeting. I loved it.
So you did it live during your morning meeting?
Yeah. So we had a sign up sheet for the morning meeting time, and then they would choose what week or what day that they would do their read aloud.
Cool. Did they use books that they just had in their house? It had to be something they had.
They had them in their house, or they are a YouTube video, and then they would shut off the volume, and then they would just read it as the page would turn. There's so many books we don't have them at home, and they don't have access to them anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of this idea. Well, I've been doing the reading timeline. I mean, Val, we did this. We've been doing this for the last couple of years, doing it on paper, and kids just write a description of the books. Thinking about kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and how reading was, kind of more of the feelings about reading. But then in the Literacy Institute that a lot of us did this summer, Dan Fagelston talked about, well, everyone's at home, and so they have all their books there, and just have them grab a book from their childhood. But I was thinking like that doesn't really apply to us because, I mean, you know, these kids don't have their library of books from their whole lives. Yeah. Even one of my students, go ahead.
No, like that's exactly like that was like the biggest obstacle, right? Is like for them to have these books because it's even hard to like spark that memory when they don't have them in their bookshelf.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Miss Tammy is editing, adding a slide. Miss Logston, oh, the little legend that could. I knew that one. I knew that was your fave. Oh. And Jenny, Miss Weir. Wait.
I was just thinking, because like for our age, pretty much for the most part, their whole lives reading has been awesome because they're so little. And so they probably won't have kind of this timeline feeling, right? Because it really hasn't changed too much. People are reading them stories. They generally like them. They're really imaginative. However, I was thinking instead of it being more of like a timeline, just more of a reflection of like books that they really like and why they really like them, and maybe digging just deeper down into that. But on the other side too, like books they don't really like and why they don't really like them, and seeing if, you know, it almost becomes like a T chart, right? And then they can just start compiling things and just creating their identity as a reader and things that they enjoy reading, and maybe just pinpointing more like specifically why they like or don't like certain things.
I love that. I love the whole idea of having these 4 and 5-year-olds start understanding their identity as a reader. How cool is that? But then also I think that's a really good, it's like a really good documentation if you do this in the beginning of the year and then again in the middle of the year, the end of the year. I mean, this is like your reading engagement section of the report card, right? Because that's one of the things we have to report on, reading engagement. So you can talk about like, has that changed throughout the year? What was it like in the beginning of the year? What kind of books were they reading in the middle of the year? And then towards the end. I've also seen this in like middle and high school where, and maybe it could work for 5th grade, where it's like the template looks like a Goodreads review at goodreads.com. And so they put on there like 3 books that they've read recently. It's like a online book talk. But then when you have it on a slideshow that's shared, hey, Muzma. We're just looking at an activity called Reading Timelines. I'll reshare this link. Yeah, I have it here. Yeah. So, yeah, creating a shared document, a shared Google slideshow where, you know, there's all these book recommendations in one place. And another version I've seen of that is where they'll have, like, a classroom will have a realistic fiction slideshow, and then a adventure fantasy slideshow, and a science fiction slideshow. And so the kids can know, you know, if they want to try a new genre, or if they're just looking for books in a specific genre, they can go to that slideshow and see what their friends are reading. But I think that's a little bit higher than where my kids are. But Heather, it sounds like your kids could probably do that.
You know, I was also thinking of another thing. So this is more specifically for our KG2s, because generally speaking, they come in not reading words. And by the end of KG2, they go out reading words, right? Like reading pictures they're doing before, but not reading words. So I was even thinking of it more of a reflective tool of like how they feel throughout their KG2 year, like learning to read words, like what that would look like. And they could even just put like we could pick out faces, right? Of like happy or sad or angry or frustrated. And then they could just like put them in. Like, this is how I was feeling during my reading journey in KG2.
Mm-hmm.
Not reflecting quite as far back as what some of the other kids are learning, but yeah.
Well, that's a great idea. The one of the years, the reading timelines we did back in the past when, we rushed through all of our content before virtual school, when it was like, okay, first day of school, make your reading timeline, but we don't really have a lot of time. So just fill in the circle with a little happy face or sad face and write one sentence about it. And it was like a one-day activity. And then we share, and it was like, okay, now we know you as readers. Let's move on. I'm happy to say I don't have that mindset anymore.
I have to go. I actually have to go to school. So.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks for coming, Tammy.
I'll see you at school, maybe.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Tammy, it's your job to make sure Graham goes home at reasonable. He told me 30 minutes.
He's the one that scheduled a student meeting at 3:30.
I know.
Ooh. Let's all get mad at Graham. I love having reasons.
Nobody ever gets mad at that guy.
I know. They're so few and far between. Ooh, yes, we can get mad at him.
He's really got it coming. It's been too long. All right. But I think we're coming over to see you too, Jenny. I don't know. They want to meet you too, so.
I've already met them. They're very lovely. I met them on Monday at around 4 or 5. So, but I'm getting a ride home with somebody else today, so I will not see you. So that's why you're in charge.
Yeah. Good for you.
See you, Tammy. Thank you. Well, we just have a couple more minutes, and I want to be super respectful of everyone's time. So would anyone feel comfortable sharing? Or maybe we'll just look at Tammy's because she just left. She loved the Care Bears books, it looks like. All the things in the Care Bears series, but the bedtime stories were my favorite. Yeah, true that. I read those every night to Archer. He's obsessed with Sunshine Bear. It's Funshine Bear. He thinks it's Sunshine Bear. Anyway. Okay, let's see. That one was mine. Miss Logston, you want to give us a little talk?
If you know anything about me, these are very much who I am as a reader. If you know Steel, like, this is how I grew to love books, is that my mom would go to a garage sale and pick up Daniel Steele books, and it was like $1/4 for a box of 100. And let me tell you, these aren't the most appropriate books for middle school children to be reading, but I love reading. And let me tell you that I learned a lot about life through Daniel Steele. She's taught me a lot about romance. I was Googling like her back cover because like I just felt like this picture didn't do her justice. Like I even typed in like Daniel Steele with cat and Daniel Steele with boa. And let me tell you, like, those are some pretty good Googleable searches. Yeah, so that's me as a reader.
No, and I think this really sums you up as a person too. You have this growth mindset that was obviously instilled when you were 4 years old.
Yes,
You love mermaids and the beach, and everything is always like what's the word? Not tropical. Nautical.
I'm just a romantic. I'm just a romantic.
Yeah.
I just
Now we all
love the jump, right? It's like Little Engine That Could, Little Mermaid, Daniel Steele. Aggression there. It's just like a leap.
I know I joined in late, but mine would be like much because I was not a very good early reader. But I think I remember my earliest memory is that of reading Matilda to Nancy Drew Hardy Boys and Secret Seven. and then to Harry Potter. And that's where it all ended. I don't know what happened after that, because it was hard to find a book as engaging as Harry Potter was for me. And because I started at that age where I started at 11 and Harry Potter turned 11, I was able to relate. And somehow after that, I did read, but did not find anything as gripping. So mine would be like Matilda, Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Secret Seven, and then Harry Potter. That's what mine would say. That sums me up.
It's hard when you start with the top, right? When you
Yeah,
read like
exactly.
books of all time.
Exactly. And
Where do you go from there?
I've put it away for my son to read like when he is at the right age, because I don't want him to go through what I went through, like read the best book ever and then, well, I hope that he chooses other books as his favorites too. That's always a hope.
Yeah. Thanks, Musma.
Thanks.
Carrie, you want to share, or do you want another minute to fill in the last one?
No, I'm just like the two books that completely changed, transformed me into a reader for sure. And I'm actually struggling to think about anything before these two books. Which the first one was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That for me was just like, oh my gosh. I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, then that was it. And then went to The Magician's Nephew, and then I can't even count how many times I've reread those over the past. And then Stephen King's It. Oh my gosh. I just, even just remembering that book of the time just spent in my bedroom just for hours and hours, I was like, that was it for me. That was it. That was probably Narnia, set me on the path to becoming a reader. Anything by Stephen King, I just can't get enough of now. So yeah, I don't know what that says about me. But
this is what I do to my students when I have a thought like this. I go, ooh, connection, Miss Jess, Miss Carrie, Miss Logston, you guys in your crazy mystery, whatever.
Murder.
Yeah. Oh, she froze. Miss Jess, you froze.
It's okay. I put on my timeline as well as Stephen King books. Yeah, he's amazing and terrifying with all his books.
Cool. You want to tell us any more about your books?
I much like Carrie, I can't remember really the beginning of books. I remember reading the Ladybird books. It's like a whole series of fairy tales, and Carrie's proper British. I read loads of them, but I don't ever remember loving them or hating them. So it just feels like I had no emotions about books until I read Room 13, and then I was really hooked on horror books for kids, appropriate books for kids. And then
horror for kids is like an oxymoron, right?
I know you've said this before, but it's a fabulous genre. Goosebumps.
Yeah.
And then I went to university, and for the whole of university, I read so many informational books. I hated reading so much. I just hated it. And then when I left university, I could choose whatever I wanted, and I put everything, because I literally go through every single genre. I love books. But I just remember that period of being forced to read books and hating it.
Thanks, Miss Jess. And we'll just quickly, I know we're a minute late, so if you need to leave, no, I don't take any offense. Jenny, you want to tell us about your books?
Really quickly, I remember being little, I hated going on errands with my mom, so I'd be in the car a lot. This is in the 80s, and she locked me in the car. We went places. And so I had my books, and I remember just sitting there, the Feely board books, just loving it. I would rub it on my face and just anyway. And then I have a connection with Carrie. I remember just loving reading. Reading was my life. In the summer, I would stay up all night reading. And then when my dad woke up in the morning, I would go to bed. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I had it, and I had a lavender scented pillow, and I would read it, and then I would smell my lavender scented pillow, and I would just pretend to be in Narnia. And then in 5th grade, there was like an advanced class for reading. And I thought, oh, I read so much. I just like, they get to read the cool book. And then I wasn't Miss Greer, that horrible human being. Just kidding. She said no. And I cried. My heart was broken. I had a conference with my mom and the teacher, and they told me my place. And then and then I was so devastated by that it just kind of shaped a lot. And then when I was studying to be a teacher, I learned that I'm dyslexic, and I just read so much that my brain but it made sense anyway. So that's and now I love to read again.
Thanks, Jenny. I have a very similar experience to that, getting kicked out of the smart kid group, but we can talk about that later. Miss Weir, you want to tell us about your books or your reading life?
I keep forgetting that I'm talking and I'm muted, but here I am. I don't have a lot of memories when I was younger of that, but I do remember in elementary school, somehow my parents ordered a box of books, and I remember reading a lot of that. Middle school, not too much, just things from social studies class. But it was not until high school, I remember in one of our English class reading A Raisin in the Sun. So some reason that book stuck in my mind, and just the experience the main character went through. And then after high school, it was, I started reading more, I think because I eventually started my library program, and one of the assignment was to read YA books, young adult books, and I think that's when I got more into reading. So for me, it was more later on in my life. That's that.
Cool, thanks.
You're welcome.
We're YA lovers. I know that about us. And that is, well, that's all. Okay, so we're 5 minutes after. I just want to say thank you so much for coming. And I mean, as you can see, just the connections built here where we're talking about books and things we like, and just, it starts with books, but then it ends with friendship. I'll leave you with that super nerdy quote. Thanks for coming.
Lavender
And love. And liberty. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Caitlin, I want to apologize for joining in late. I was